We took Site C-18 at Dry Basin Lake because the host said the wind skipped that cove. At 12:03 a.m., my NOAA weather radio woke on WX6 by itself and bleated a SAM tone. The voice that followed was normal until it wasn't. Remain 2 meters from the shore. Do not step on exposed lake bed. NOAA doesn't give campsite rules. I checked the screen. It scrolled Flood Advisory, County, Elsinore, effective 12:09 a.m. 6 minutes from now. Jess said, "Glitch?" And I wanted to agree. I unzipped the fly. The lake sat like a mirror. Our headlamp beams reached the waterline and died as if the light hit smoke. The night smelled like hot rock and algae. The radio clicked again. "Do not pass the painted stake." I didn't know there was one. We found it 30 feet from the tent, a rebar pin with chipped orange paint I swear I hadn't seen earlier. When I stepped beyond the stake, the radio volume increased without my hand. "Return to safe distance." I stepped back, and it softened like a person lowering their voice. I filmed the dial and the tent clock blinking 12:05 in the same shot. Another alert printed from the app. 12:09 a.m. again, 5 minutes early. My phone's location dot hopped to the opposite shore and back like it had lost its anchor. Jess asked what we do if water rises. The lake had receded this year. If anything, the bed was wider. I set my hiking pole as a second stake and paced out exactly 2 meters with the tape from my repair kit, trying to humor the radio like it was a first aid instructor. At 12:07, the voice changed timbre for one sentence. "Avoid mirrored surfaces." The lake was 1. The tent windows were 2 more. I zipped them shut and turned off my phone screen, and the radio said nothing at all for a full minute, like it was waiting for me to finish. At 12:09, my phone finally chimed the advisory it had been predicting. The text matched, except for one line that wasn't there anymore. "Remain 2 meters from the shore." I recorded the radio again. It repeated the phrase, same cadence, same air hiss, like it was reading from a script nobody else had. "Test it," Jess said. I walked the tape to the waterline and stopped. My headlamp beam hit the surface and made a hard white wall, like rain in car wash light. Beyond it, the lake vanished. I put a boot over the line anyway. The radio crackled. "Return!" The beam shortened a foot like something absorbed it. When I backed up, the beam lengthened, the way a shadow relaxes. At 12:14, a third alert printed, this time from a neighboring county we'd never entered. I switched the radio off. It clicked back on and spoke my campsite. "Charlie 18. Jess grabbed my sleeve hard enough to hurt. We heard water lipping at rocks 3 seconds before we saw any movement. The lake edge climbed to the rebar pin and stopped, as if the shore remembered where it should be. I measured with the tape. It was still 2 meters from our door, exactly. At dawn, the water had retreated 2 feet beyond the stake. We hiked to the station. The ranger stared at my screen recordings. "WX6 relays automated messages," he said. "They can't say site numbers, and we don't use meters. County posts in feet." I lined up my video frames later. In each one, when the voice said shore, the waveform spiked the same way, and my GPS logs marked a 1-second jump to lake center. The proof sits on my drive. 3 alerts with matching hashes, saved before they existed, and a single sentence Noah never sent. The trail into Aspen Bend switchbacked through old survey cuts, and blue flagging tape fluttered from trunks like ribbons with nothing to celebrate. We took the flat near the creek and left the tape alone. At 12:22 a.m., wind died and the forest sank into that low hum you hear when rain has run out of ways to fall. I strung our food and laid out a blue poly tarp for gear. The tape on the nearest pine brushed my shoulder. It wasn't wind. Nothing else moved. The knot slid around the trunk and refaced us like a cat turning its head. Jess filmed a short clip, bored more than scared. We laughed at ourselves and crawled in. At 12:31, something crackled outside, plastic on bark. I unzipped. In the beam, 4 pieces of blue tape now hung on 4 trees, making a weak square around the tent. "Did you tie more?" Jess asked. I hadn't. I pulled one strip down. It felt warm from friction and left a resin smell on my fingers. I planted the phone in time-lapse facing the nearest flag. For 2 minutes, nothing. Then the tail end crawled around the trunk and pointed at our door like it had heard a bell. I checked the knots. No wire, no fishing line. We tried to sleep. The tape clicked at odd intervals, not wind's rhythm. 4, 9, 13, then quiet. I wrote the numbers in my notebook because that felt like control. At 12:49, the 4th strip tightened, and the whole square cinched in a few inches, blue lines leaning inward. The dog lifted his muzzle and whined through his nose. I hit record and whispered the time. We lay still and listened to the forest count with us. At 12:58, the square pulled tight enough to pluck, and the tarp made a little drum. I cut one strip with my pocket knife. It retied itself in under a minute, sloppy but a knot, the tail facing the door again. We were past laughing. Jess said, "Step outside the square." I did, with the radio in my pocket to call if anything stupid happened. The minute my boot crossed the line, the opposite tape rotated to keep its tail pointing at me. It wasn't making a square anymore, it was making lines to a center. I grabbed the phone and stopped the time lapse. The clip showed each tape swing to face me simultaneously, no wind, no delay, like 4 compass needles jerking to north. My GPS track wobbled and drew a tiny diamond around my feet, even though I stood still. At 1:06, a final crackle. The lines slacked. In their place, a new loop of tape lay on the ground, blue making a circle I hadn't tied. The circle's diameter matched our tarp edge exactly. Dawn let us see what else had changed. Tiny score marks ringed each trunk at tape height, like something had turned the band 1,000 times. At the ranger office, the tech looked at my time lapse and the GPS diamond. "Survey crews still stash tape," she said, "but no one sets geofences in polyester." I keep the proof, a strip of that tape that won't hold a knot anymore, and a GPS file where the breadcrumb loop inside our camp measures a perfect 3.0 meters, even though we never walked it. If the forest wants a shape around you, it chooses circles first. The square is just the part you notice.